what have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced in setting up the first crank or even the second one?
There's a lot of challenges, especially in the UAE. The authorities here want the standards to be very good, exceptional. The first challenges are in constructing of the site, passing all the inspections and all that. But later on, it becomes dealing with people, building your team and knowing how to interact with each one of them. Want it or not, 5 egos versus 30 egos is completely different.
Yeah.
So it's somehow trying to develop a relationship with everybody on the sense that you understand people, try to understand them, because I've been an employee of other places for so long and I've had my frustrations. So I always try to see how would I behave if I was them.
Welcome to the show, Nuno. It's great to have you here. We actually have never met. We're new Instagram friends.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, 𝗕𝗿𝗄𝗧. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Likewise. You came highly recommended.
No pressure.
Yeah, exactly. All for good things, for really good things.
Hopefully.
So for people that don't know, why don't you give them a little bit of a backstory as to who you are and what brought you to the Middle East?
Fantastic. So I'm Nuno, as you said. I'm from Portugal. I've moved here about almost 10 years ago, just out of university. I finished my master's in electronic engineering, and I had a cousin living here who is like an older brother figure to me. And he's like, "Hey, dude, why instead of you going settle in a job in Portugal, just come here. Come here, see if you find something, and if you don't, you don't." So that's how I kind of came here, managed to find a job. Was meant to stay for 2 years, and I'm never gonna leave.
It's a running theme I have with pretty much everyone that's from the UAE, that they're like, I was coming for 2 months, or I was coming for a year, and I never expected myself. I'm 20 years. And
you're a pro.
Yeah, it is. And I said I came when I was a baby. But yeah, you just, I don't know, it's a city that kind of captivates you for a lot longer than you think.
Yeah, it's done in a very smart way. It's very appealing.
Yeah.
And you obviously are surrounded by people in the same situation, so you kind of relate to people, and then it makes it harder to leave. And then when you go back to Europe and you get used to this lifestyle, which is so fast, you kind of feel like Europe is a little bit slow, not in a bad way.
Yeah, but do you notice? I always notice that my watch, I feel like, goes slower when I'm back home.
Yes.
Yeah. And back home in the UK, I'm like, I don't ever feel like I look at the clock between 12 and 3 in Dubai when I'm working.
Flies.
But at home, I'm like, it's 11:30, now it's 11:41.
Even when you're having a good time, it feels like it's slow, which is good. Because when I go there, at least it's for holidays. But I like the time to pass slow. But I totally feel that it's exactly the same with me.
Funny that, isn't it? So you were here, you were working.
Yeah.
And what is it that you do now, and what took you to that?
Yeah, so I initially came here to work in IT because that's what I studied. Not by passion, I would say. My parents, my dad especially, had a big will for me to study something that could lead me into a better financial safety in the future, let's say.
And then you decided to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. No, and I've started teaching spinning, indoor cycling classes, fitness in general, when I was 17 years old. So I started very, very young, and it was something I always kept on the side. And I did that through university to help with bills and everything. And then when I moved to Dubai, I said, no more fitness. I'm going to try to get a proper job. I would say proper. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I mean, based on what I've studied. And then I ended up really not liking my day-to-day at all. At the same time, I managed to get a part-time job in fitness, and surprisingly, things went well for me, and I became full-time fitness. And then later on, managed to get great partners and started Crank, the brand we own. But that's what shifted what I was doing here. So went completely 180 degrees about what was meant to happen. So
and what you studied, which is often so many, happens to so many people, that they go and study something, but then sort of 8 years or 5 years later, they don't actually end up staying in that. Do you wish you'd stayed in that space? Like if you'd stayed in fitness and pursued just that, or?
To be honest, it's a very tough question to answer, because I do see like having that as a great thing. And I've spoke at a gym school once, and the kids sometimes they don't know what to do, and I say, even if you don't know what you want to do and you are very inclined to something, it doesn't mean you can pursue something later on in life. That will give you knowledge that you won't necessarily have at a certain moment in time. And by knowing a lot of things on the side and exploring a passion, you can probably mix them. But going to your question, I don't regret it. I think like I love what I do. Yeah. It's not easy, but it's also very very nice to know that the harder I work, the better I can get for myself and not necessarily for others. Because I don't think it would be easier to start a company in tech with the level of competitiveness there is in the market. Yeah. And I see a lot of friends that work in IT and they're always stressed, and and I'm always stressed as well, but at least I can teach classes and release that stress. So to that, I know I'm very happy with the path.
So 𝗕𝗿 is a boutique fitness studio. So for those that are, it's in the UAE, in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi.
Correct.
And it's a fitness studio that specializes in, if I'm right in thinking, as I haven't done a 𝗕𝗿 session yet.
Me too.
I will come. But it's cycling, which I'm like.
No, we have both. So we have indoor cycling, which is our, I would say, bread and butter. We do our ride classes, as we call them.
In the dark.
And then we also have another class called 𝗕𝗵, which is a full body workout. And it's like a group PT experience.
I saw that, but I wasn't okay. Yeah. That I would come to.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do was to have 2 classes that could please our clients.
A different audience, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what we do at 𝗕𝗿 comes from the fact that I've been lucky enough to experience all, focusing a little bit more in spinning, all the spinning stages until the early 2000s until today. And it was,
what are the spinning stages?
Oh my god, it was so cringe back in the days.
Okay,
right?
tell me.
So back in the days, you would studios, or there were no studios, there were gyms, right? They would have classes. You would have to bring your bike to the spot, because that studio would then be used for other classes as well. And then people would wear like weird lycra stuff. It was bright light. So you could see everybody struggling on the bike or just not doing anything, So it was a bit cringe on the sense that even the music choices back then were a bit weird. People used to write the tempo of the music and not the beat of the music, which something that can put some people off is if you're writing a song and you're not writing on the beat, it feels weird. You know? So what I would say writing on the tempo would be you ignore the beat of the music, but then when the music, energy goes up, you go faster or slower depending on what you're going to do. And you write the beat is much more, it's like you're dancing on the bike. So makes much more sense. So right now, the level of indoor cycling classes overall are much better. Not if you go to a gym, but if you go to a studio. And what we wanted to do with 𝗕𝗿 was, so we started 5 years ago, pretty much, was to kind of facelift the face of fitness in general, but was also to use the background that we have in technology and the background that I have my experience with classes and create something different. So if I were to describe 𝗕𝗿 is a nightclub with bikes. That's what we want to describe it to, because we also do a lot of DJ rides. Classes are in the dark, but we have these crazy laser lights on the stage and some LEDs. So it's, when you come to a class, you come to have fun. So it's more on that sense, kind of offering you an experience versus a workout where you still work out and burn a lot of calories. So
a lot of calories, I think.
A lot of calories.
Yeah, in that space, in the sweat, and I mean, I've seen the.
Yeah, because we also have a leaderboard system, which some people love to use. Some people, because we have different niches that would come to a class.
Always at the bottom of those leaderboards.
I
think that's what picked me off.
It's optional to be in it, but we have people that come for the music and the vibes and to do some moves on the bike, and they love it. Some other people come for the bit of both, but some other come for the workout itself and burning calories and scoring on the leaderboard and kind of stuff. So
the competitiveness,
yes, which is always there, especially in this country.
So have you had to build your knowledge on music as well, or does that just come with the job? Because you think, fitness is one thing, but I would have thought in what you're doing now, the music is a key part to that.
Absolutely. Music is essential. So
have you had to educate yourself on like songs that you like, but also what is commercial that I think people also resonate with as well?
Yeah, so I was very lucky to being born very delayed. So my parents tried to have me for almost 20 years. And there was no way to get me out, So I was born in an age group where I don't have brothers, but I got a lot of cousins.
Okay.
And sometimes my mom had to go to work and had to leave me with one of my cousins, right? So 2 of them were amazing music fans, and they would, I would sit with them and they would be listening to stuff. And since a very early age, I started listening to music and really liking music and understanding music, almost unconsciously, like understanding it, understanding that there's a chorus here, there's a build up there, the different genres. And they used to listen from, Backstreet Boys until to Chemical Brothers, more like different stuff. So in that sense, it was always something in me that I was lucky to be
kind
influenced.
of be part of and aware
being
of
influenced
as well.
in that sense. But music is essential, and when we train new instructors, is the first thing we address is music.
Really?
Yeah, the first
because
thing.
you could be a really good instructor, but if you have no thought for music or no sense of what's it like beat, I guess.
Beat, yeah,
then
rhythm.
Rhythm, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I shouldn't really show you my dancing either. But then I guess that wouldn't make them a good instructor.
No.
So they could be a good instructor, but not good for what you need in the space that you do.
But it's very trainable.
Is it?
It is. And one of the things when we've developed our instructor manual, I wrote it, so it has a lot of grammar errors in it. But one of the things that when I had a part-time job here in Dubai in fitness and had an active job in IT, was how do I get to do a playlist fast, and how do I get to change my music on a regular basis, because that's something we have to do, always come with something fresh. So when I wrote it in a way where it becomes very easy for people to understand. And we had cases where we train people from scratch and some of them have no rhythmicality. So we'll take them a little bit longer, but they'll get there. Yeah. And the way we try to deconstruct things is a little bit more easier to understand. Because for me, and for all my partners, building a brand and passing our identity is very important, that we choose the right people. And that cannot be a barrier for us, because we hire based on personality and not on CV. Because the mindset behind it is, I can teach you how to become a good instructor or an amazing instructor, but I cannot teach you how to become a good person. And in fitness, being a good person matters a lot. Because when let's say you never come to crank, you want to come to crank and you don't want the instructor to be full of himself or, not paying attention to you. So you want someone that, acknowledges people and speaks with people and is friendly, and there's a way you connect with that person by being a good person, and that for us it's something essential. So
do you get people not to hand in CVs then, or do you how would you pick? So if you say it's not on CV, is it based on referral or go and speak to this person? How does it work?
So in the first stage when we opened 5 years ago, we basically had only 4 or 5 instructors.
And you're now at 30, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we started with 5, and those 5, I chose them based, knowing them. And so there's a base that you're going to need to have that would have that experience and that will have that know-how from the get-go. Then after a few months, we start identifying clients that are extremely good, write super well, that will make life easier. But sometimes you also have clients that approach us. And then we see, okay, how does this person behave when he or she comes to class, right? How is this person with our staff? How is this person with, what can we sense from this person?
That personal brand.
Exactly. And then we do that kind of filtering on that sense. And then we say, okay, this is a strong candidate, and we train that person and the person becomes an instructor eventually. Or sometimes we get people emailing a CV indeed, but then we have to assess the person itself. It's more on that sense.
It would never be kind of based on that.
Yes.
I mean, the idea of going in, I'm sure lots of people watching and listening have thought, I've attended a fitness class, I've loved it, and let me go and set it up. Because it sounds, in theory, it sounds easy. Go and buy some bikes and set it up. And we all know that in business, it's not like that. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced in setting up the first crank or even the second one? And kind of how have you overcome that, or what's it taught you?
Well, there's a lot of challenges, especially in the UAE, because when you open a business, the authorities here want the standards to be very good, exceptional. So the first challenge,
solely should be as
yeah,
well,
it should be, yeah. So the first challenges are in constructing of the site, passing all the inspections and all that. But later on, it becomes dealing with people, building your team and knowing how to interact with each one of them. And obviously, it becomes more and more complex as the team grows because, want it or not, 5 egos versus 30 egos is completely different.
Yeah.
So it's somehow trying to develop a relationship with everybody on a sense that you understand people. As a boss, I'm not very bossy. I try to understand them because I've been an employee of other places for so long and I've had my frustrations. So I always try to see how would I behave if I was them.
The other way around.
Yeah. Normally we avoid a lot of drama because we said from the get-go that we are a drama-free place. We don't like gossip. We don't consent gossip inside Crank. We rather spend our energy, doing what we do, and people understand based on the criteria that we have on choosing.
And that's your values. I behind that as well.
So that saves me a lot of headache based on my previous experiences. So it's sometimes easier for me to relate to them and address the situation. But I would say one of the biggest challenges that we have is definitely managing a team and a big team. And I think all businesses can relate to that.
Absolutely. What are some of the things that you've implemented in terms of strategies to deal with that? So you've said from the outgo, we don't have drama, we no gossip, we're this. But what are some of the things, like, do you have regular meetups? Do you do things out with? Do you get people to submit? What are some of the things that you do to help with that process?
So we do have meetings quarterly. We do a call with everybody and everything. But the best strategy that we have inside Crank, not just me, but the managers that work close to me, it's lead by example. And this is how we try to pass a bit of empathy to the team. We basically say, whatever you are going to do, whatever you've done, we've done it as well, right? We're not demanding something that we haven't done. So on that sense, I've done this, and this is what happened to me during that situation. I'm here if you need my help. And it's basically leading by example is something that I value a lot. And people in the team that work closely with me are exactly the same. So on that sense, to avoid problems, when you have shown people and you've been through the same situation before and they might complain about something, then you can say, I've done it. It's not really how you're saying. I understand you. And that's how we try to, that's the best mechanism that we have. It's, roll your sleeves up. You've done it. Now you get someone to do it as well. And you can pass that knowledge and that experience. And so I think connecting empathy, it's really important when building a brand and making sure the core of the business is all in sync. So that's on a personal one-on-one level. And then on the team level, we do quarterly meetings. We also do some team outings. We like to party, obviously. We do that quite often.
What's been one of your best ones?
Oh my God, that was the first Crank birthday. We rented a boat for 300 people.
300 people?
Yes.
So is that all like your clients and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was even last night. Actually, we went out for dinner with my partners and some of our managers, and we actually were talking about it. We're coming up to 5 years now. We got to do something like that.
Ooh, so what are you thinking?
My vote was for another boat party, but there's some other. We have very creative people in the team.
I love it.
So that was we rented a boat at Dubai Marina. Took everybody out for 4 hours. Invited clients, friends of clients. And it was fantastic. I can't remember much, but it was great.
In terms of sort of, growing businesses, coming up for 5 years, like it's not easy. How did you start to develop this sort of the client database coming in? Because it's a competitive industry,
Very
fitness. There's other studios, so you've got, this is what we're standing out with, this is what we're doing. But how did you build up to be able to then open another one? What were some of your successful strategies?
So I'm very stubborn in a way. From the beginning, I told that my main mindset would be, I don't want to see what anybody else is doing. All right. I don't subscribe to any other newsletters. I don't follow other studios on Instagram, not by disrespect, just because Instagram is one of my biggest tools, these days. And I don't want to be distracted because sometimes, the FOMO is real. When you see someone doing something that you might like, you get really annoyed at it. So instead of me spending that amount of energy scooping around and trying to understand
what else is out there.
I'd rather use that time to sit down with the team and say, all right, we've done this, we've done that, what can we do next? So that happens quite often. It's kind of like reinventing ourselves on a regular basis. If you go to Crank now and if you went to Crank 5 years ago, the standards went up. And every single year we try to look at the studio, see things that we can fix and improve on a regular basis. So it gives the client that quality. But overall, it's what we do is a lot extra to what happens in the studio because we wanted to do something different always. So that's the main part. When we go in, we never spend time talking about this and that. Because I had that experience before when I was working for someone else in other companies. We would sit down and our general manager would spend, I'd say 50% of our meeting talking, have you seen this? Have you seen that? And that
Which can be a bit motivating, I think, in a little bit.
It is. But then again, when you wake up, we have a certain amount of willpower, right? There's only so much we can take every single day. And if I'm going to spend 10 minutes on that, these 10 minutes less, I'm going to spend doing something else that we can do. So it's more in that sense is how can I keep improving what we have, focus on ourselves. We don't know everything. Obviously, we're going to still have to learn from others, but we know that we can do better ourselves. We can do it. So so that's basically the biggest mindset that we have. I always, when we have a meeting and someone starts talking about something that goes off that topic, I say, guys, no, let's focus back in. Not interested. Let's, this is what we do. What's the next step?
I know you do a lot of collaborations as well. And one of the collaborations I've seen, I was really quite surprised at it because I was running very badly on the beach. I don't do that a lot, but I was on the beach and I saw salt. And then I saw these people doing all these exercises with these headphones on. And it was like, well, I guess you'd call that like a silent disco. Silent disco. And I was like, but that's weird because that's a burger place. And then they've got this fitness. How does that collaboration come about and how has it worked? It looked beautiful, by the way. But how did that work? And
so basically Crank, more than a fitness brand, we want to brand it as a lifestyle brand.
Okay.
And life's about balance, first
Absolutely.
of all. We have... I support cheat meals. I think they are good. They are part of everything. And Salt is such a dynamic brand like we are. And we thought, we would be lying to ourselves by saying that our clients don't eat burgers,
absolutely.
Right? So the synergy between the two brands is fantastic. And that kind of helps us to establish ourselves more as a lifestyle brand as we want to be seen.
And attainable, I imagine, because for some people might think, I'm going to the fitness studio is quite I'm not there yet, or I'll go when I'm fit.
Yeah.
But
that also helps people that are a bit insecure, right? Like if you're completely strict and you are scared about it, because that's a thing with people, right? They are afraid sometimes to start the fitness journey because they think that it's this or that, and it's not really like that, right? Obviously, it's important to look after ourselves and it's important to have balance, but you are not eliminating all the good and the bad things, right?
Yeah, of course.
And there's positives in everything. So for us, it also works as a barrier breaker. It helps us to be seen as a lifestyle brand, and we love to work with Salt. They're so nice to work with and easy to work with. And they look so good. The Kite Beach is gorgeous,
It's stunning. And then it all lined up and everyone was doing the same exercise. It looked brilliant. Yeah. What other collaborations have worked well for you, or are there marketing strategies that have worked? You come across as someone who's very creative. So I'm excited to hear some other things that have worked well.
Going a little bit back, one of the things when we started Crank that I've realized is, more than just trying to implement the normal ways of advertising, which 6 years ago are completely different than now, right? Because social media now plays such a big role. Let's try to create and give back to clients by offering them experiences and things that we can do differently. Okay. So we have done, only last year we've done over 60 outdoor classes in multiple locations. For example, some of the most exciting ones, Queen Elizabeth II, both down in Port Rashid with Adidas. We've done Yas Marina circuit during the Formula One weekend. We've done Salt, obviously, is one of the best ones.
You did one at the Museum
of the Future was one of the latest ones. That was so inspiring. Then we also do collaborations with, brands that relate to us, such as the Edition Hotel in Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
They gave us the nightclub. So we've done a class in the nightclub.
During the day?
During the end of the day. And people then would stay there for the weekend, for example.
Wow.
Yes.
And you've got one coming up, have you not?
With the
I saw in your stories, yeah.
We've done with the W 4.5 years ago, and now we're going to do it again at the Palm. So we're all about like doing different things. And then we started to implement the silent disco classes, which, it's a different experience. Because normally when you play through speakers outdoors, sound quality isn't great. Yeah. People can understand the instructor. So that adds a little bit of touch, a little bit of finesse to the event that we love. But yeah, we've done so many collabs and we don't want to stop, right? We just basically like to do collabs with the brands we identify ourselves with, and we like to do them on a regular basis to keep that relationship alive.
Yeah.
And then we just do that, mate. We love it.
So I think maybe someone who's watching or listening to this might go, well, I want to do a collaboration with someone. What would you say would be the best things for them to do? Would you say talk to them on Instagram? Would you say send them an email? Like, what have been the strategies that have worked well in order to at least get your foot in the door to say, hey, we've got this crazy idea?
I would say when we are approached, we like to see that the person approaching us likes what we do. So the first thing we would do is see if the person comes to Crank or not, for example. That's the first one. Because, there's a lot of similar brands in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi as well. If brand A wants to do something with us, but brand B is also a good candidate, but the brand A is approaching us but has no relation to us, and brand B has, we're going to go for brand B. So that's one thing we look into, if the person values our brand. So that's if we are approached. That's the first thing. But if we had to approach a brand, we would sometimes DM them on Instagram, or we go there to the place and see if they can get us a contact. Yeah. It's always more personal. It shows that you actually put an effort in to go to a place. Some people value that. I do personally value that, because sending a message anybody can send, unless you're too far away, so that's understandable. But Instagram DM or email, obviously we do that, and it's what works best. But I would say face-to-face always the best.
Yeah, and when I guess it's a personal touch, and now we can do it, that it just makes even more effort to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole fitness journey for you, though, you started young, was 17 in that space. And I think, what was the average age then when someone was doing it?
20-something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like very early.
But fitness has been a big part of your life, because I think I'd read somewhere that your mum had to sign a waiver for you to go to the gym. Was that right? Yeah. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
So it all started because I was a very fat kid. I was almost obese, into the point where I was getting frustrated. I'm from Portugal. Everybody loves football, but I was too slow to make it to any team. I could not make it to any team. At school, obviously, the girls wouldn't even look at me, you know what I mean? That kind of sense. So I started to get a little bit frustrated with myself, and and sometimes I would be bullied at school, which is kind of normal, unfortunately. So I told, society can change, and I'm not saying I'm in the wrong, but I need to change. I need to do something about it.
And was this something that you noticed, or it was just through the experiences you were having with other people, like not being picked and not doing this, and you're like, oh, I need to go and change this? Because it's hard for children to go, but it's me, I need to change.
It was a mix. Because I've always been a geeky kid, but came to a point where I want to be able to play football more. I want to join a team, Okay. And my dad, I was born in Bermuda, by the way, which is a side note. And my dad was living in Bermuda a while, and he said, when are you going to make it to a football team? Let's go. And then I would go to him and oh, can I have a Nintendo 64? It's like, yes, if you make it to a football team, I'll pay you €5 per goal. So okay. So obviously that was just, that's meaningless, obviously. Yeah. But for me, it was more, the sense of I was not good enough to do something started to upset me. When I was starting to begin my puberty years. And then obviously at school, a lot of pressure, people making fun of me. I didn't go to a beach and take my t-shirt off until I was 17 years old, because I was extremely embarrassed. And I'm not in the wrong, but I just didn't feel comfortable, right? So I started I told my mom, I want to go to the gym when I was 14. She's like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do that? I say, yeah. But you need to sign a waiver for me to go. So every time I would go, I need to bring her paper. They would let me in, and they would have a program for me to follow. Then when I was 15, I was a bit bored with the gym itself. And I'm from a very small city, so there was not a lot of gyms to go. And I started to notice the spinning classes. And I'm like, I'm going to give it a go. I remember the first time I did it, I'm like, oh man, I'm never doing this again. It's too hard. But I looked at the floor, I was so sweaty. And I'm like, this might be good for me.
Had you started to lose the weight by then? Or was there still more weight to go?
Still more weight, yeah.
Okay.
So when I started to do the spinning classes, helping the fact that I was growing as well, I started to lose a lot of weight and fast. And then I made it to a football team, right? But before that, for you to see, I was that bad at sports that I couldn't make it to any football team. I had to go play basketball. And I started to enjoy. My best friend was there on the team, and we were really bad players. We would lose every single match, but that also helped. So basketball 2 times a week, and then I started doing spinning classes 3-4 times a week, and then I started to see big differences. Made it to a football team. And then when
Dad buy you the Nintendo then?
Yes. Yes. And then when I was 16 and a half, one of the instructors that approached me and said, you know what, you have a lot of potential. Would you like to become an instructor? And I was like, what? I was so happy about it because for the first time I kind of realized that I was being noticed at something which never happened to me before. Yeah. I've always been a good student, that kind of stuff, but outside that.
And in the fitness space.
Exactly. Yeah. And for me to be, I was like, oh, it means I can come teach and boss adults around. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I became an instructor when I was 17. So I was the youngest fitness instructor in Portugal. And yeah, that's how it all started and made such an impact in my life.
And you've come full circle now. You said the girls wouldn't speak to you and you just got married last year.
Got a beautiful wife.
Stunning. The pictures looked amazing. Yeah. And here you are. If anyone is at school looking, you can be, this is it. And by making change.
Absolutely.
There's something that I think is really important so those that may be listening, watching, maybe their child's going through the same challenge, what advice would you have for them, because it's got to come from them. Yeah. The more you push it, the more that they'll go, I don't want to be part of it. But what experience, having been through it, would you share?
I would say time is crucial. Mm-hmm. There will come a point where as a kid, you will understand, you will mature a little bit. And that's the best way to understand it. Parents just have to be patient. Obviously, try to understand the companies around their kids. That's important. I've always been very well surrounded. I've had a very close group of 2 or 3 friends. I have had a lot of friends, but close friends, 2 or 3. Yeah. They've always backed me up and supported me. So that's extremely important. See who's around your kids. But I would say for these days, they are completely different. I would say try to embrace technology in a sense that, the more strict you are, the less the kids are going to listen to you. So there's going to have to be a balance. Yeah. But it's trying to maybe inspire your kids with figures that might inspire them to become somehow a little bit like those people. Yeah. And if they want kids to start moving more, they probably should use some kind of inspiration figures and try to make them understand, if you actually try to exercise 2 or 3 times a day, this is what this person used to do back then, don't you think it's such a good example? So that could be a strategy to get around it, but I think these days way more challenging.
Yeah. Who's inspired you over the years? Is there someone that you've looked up to?
In terms of obviously I'm a big fan of Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. It's gonna sound cheesy, but he's an inspiration for many of us due to his background. But I would say for me, my dad has been my inspiration from day one. I've grown up, so I come from, we were never wealthy or never had money around. My dad was an immigrant for most of his life. And I've always had to go to work after school to my mom's work because, we couldn't afford a nanny or anything. It's not normal in Europe anyway to have nannies. But I've seen my mom and my dad work all my life, and I've learned so much from them that I use on today. And unconsciously, I was learning from them, and now I realized that all along. But I would say my dad, because my dad came from an extremely poor family. I know he had to start working when he was 6 years old, didn't have shoes.
Wow.
Very, very poor conditions. And my dad was kind of always a rebel. When he was he was a very smart guy. So when he was 15 years old, he said, you know what, I'm just going to run away. And because his dad used to take his salary.
Wow.
Yeah. So my dad was like, you know what, I'm earning my money. I can just go somewhere and just get the money for me and start a new life. So when he was 15, he kind of went south in Portugal, because he's from the north, and on his own, made me have a great childhood, and my mom as well, together, obviously. But he's such a great example to me. It's unbelievable. Great mindset, my dad.
So what does he say now when he sees what you've got?
My dad's a bit grumpy. So my dad is now 75. He refuses to come here.
Does he really? He's never seen the studio.
He holds a grudge against the fact that I'm in Dubai and not in Portugal.
He wants you to be there.
Yes.
Oh.
But my mom is an avid fan, and he's always showing him. Obviously, he's happy for me, but he doesn't want to jump on an airplane, which makes me a little bit sad. Maybe you can see the podcast, and we can try to convince him.
Dad, if you're watching this, get
down.
over to Dubai.
Yeah. No, but going a little bit back and the way it impacted my life and my mindset as an entrepreneur. My mom used to work for Lacoste for
the clothing brand.
For 25 years. So after school, I would go to the back room and I would do my homework with my mom, and she was exceptional with clients. If she had to leave later because a client didn't have what the client wanted, she would stay there and she would come early and everything. And she was so good communicating with clients. And my dad was also on another level. So when I was 12, my dad opened a restaurant, which was his big dream. That's why he was in Bermuda for. And every single damn summer I had to go and work on the restaurant, which I hated back then. But today he helped me a lot. I've seen my dad dealing with his team, and I've learned from that. I've seen my dad dealing with clients, and I learned massively from that. And also helped me value my time and learn from it. Again, nothing was for granted. If I wanted something, my dad would say, go and work and get it. And help me, give me such a big lesson. But my parents were such amazing professionals. And behind the scenes, people that have no studies at all, that didn't go to school, they taught me more than sometimes I can learn from big entrepreneurs.
That's lovely.
Yeah, it's true.
What's next for Crank? What have you got in the pipeline?
So we now opened the franchise program. Actually, we've had loads of requests throughout these past 5 years, but our mindset has always been to stick to what we know. We weren't ready to escalate the brand. So we've taken our time to prepare all the manuals, get ourselves a franchise consultant company on the side. And now we're ready to expand. So we're looking into see if we could get international growth. Within the region, we are very happy with 2 studios because we want to keep the brand alive. And so we want to have less facilities, but always very alive facilities, always busy, always, people coming, looking forward to come, and not kind of dissipate the client base throughout other places. But so next would be international. That would be the dream.
Excellent. And if someone wants to, are you still doing classes yourself now?
Yeah.
So how can someone find you? What's the website or Instagram? You're quite active on Instagram. So maybe share your handles.
So our Crank Instagram handle is crank.uae. I'm on Instagram as well as Nuno Costa Fernandes. And if anybody wants to come to class, super easy. Just go to crank-fit.com, which is our website, or Google Crank Dubai or Crank UAE will be the first thing there. And then just, go on the website, create an account, because people need an account to book a class, because you can book like a cinema. You can book a spot in a class.
Oh, wow. Okay. So if you want to be that person at the back that no one sees, then
and we need clients' information, not because we want to take that information, it's just because after class you are emailed your stats. So how many calories, distance, and everything you've done in class. So create an account, head to the schedule, and just get cranking.
Is that what you call it? Is it called get cranking?
No, we normally say yalla, let's crank.
Yalla, let's
to adapt
crank.
to that. To the
well, I have to say, I might not join you in the spinning, but I definitely am interested in joining the shape, the shape class. Yeah. So count me in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I have absolutely loved getting to know you, your story, and we've only just recently met. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know more about you. Thanks for sharing.
Likewise. It's an honor to be here with you, Kelly, and pleasure to meet you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.